the Steelers reaching an agreement to trade the four-time All-Pro to Oakland for a fifth-round pick and a third-round pick.
The Raiders officially releasing Antonio Brown as he requested be done early this morning.
New England Patriots are releasing Antonio Brown. We appreciate the hard work of many people over the past 11 days, but we feel that it is best to move in a different direction at this time.
He tweeted he's done with the NFL. Has he played his last game in the National Football League?
I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, what was the final straw with Antonio Brown?
Yeah, we're focused on the Jets today.
Thank you, Coach.
Subscribe to Antonio's channel. What's your channel? Just Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown. Yeah.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Yo, Antonio Brown is literally out here running routes against nobodies. Alright, maybe not nobodies, they might be YouTubers, but they're not athletes. They might be athletes, but they're not NFL players. Antonio Brown has been collaborating with other YouTubers recently. Gotta bring the bread in somehow. In fact, on a YouTuber named Destroying's video, AB was obviously high as fuck. Don't take me as the know-all be-all on people being high, but I know a little bit about when someone is high, and that nigga was high. And then I saw this video of AB running routes against literal nobodies, and I had to make this video. I maybe had thought that the diva in him had finally let loose, and that's why he's not in the NFL, but really I think something deeper has happened, caused by this hit. So naturally, I need to take a deep dive into what happened to Antonio Brown. What's going on, guys? My name's Cliff, and this is Unpack That Bowl, the show where we take a deep dive into pop culture. On this episode, we're taking a deep dive into the Antonio Brown problem. Now, when I say the Antonio Brown problem, what do I mean? Well, Antonio Brown was one of the best wide receivers of our era. And simply, he came from nothing, so that's amazing. Who is Antonio Brown? Antonio Tavares Brown Sr. is an American football player who is a wide receiver and is currently a free agent. He was raised in Liberty City, Miami. He was born July 10th, 1988. It's close to my birthday. I'm July 22nd. He was born to Eddie and Adriana, who were married at the time, but later divorced when Antonio was 10. Antonio attended Miami Norland High School, where he competed in both football and track. Now, for any other player, and if Antonio Brown had gone any other way, this would be the classic NFL Cinderella story from rags to riches. Antonio Brown's father was also a professional arena football player for Albany/Indiana. He was also voted the league's greatest football player ever on his team. So even though Antonio spent years away from his father, he still showed a passion for football. Antonio was homeless for a brief period when he was 16. See, his mother had kicked him out because Antonio and her new boyfriend kept getting into it. So finally she had it. And you know, when it comes between your son and your new boyfriend, obviously you pick your son, right? That's the obvious choice. So however it happened, Antonio Brown didn't have a home. He recounts sleeping in teammates' houses and sometimes in cars or cheap motels. Antonio described this time as being a little rough. In football, Antonio Brown played quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and punt returner for the Vikings. In track and field, Antonio Brown was a 2-state qualifier in the 100-meter dash and also ran a 4th leg in the Norland 4x100-meter relay, helping them get the state title at 41.5 seconds. Now, I don't know how fast that is, but I'm looking some times to throw them up here, and you're going to see that's fast for a dual sport high school athlete. Coming out of high school, Antonio Brown applied for FSU, but his admission was denied because of his academic concerns. So he decides to enroll in North Carolina Tech Prep. Playing in just 5 games as quarterback, Antonio Brown passed for 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns while rushing for 450 yards and 13 more touchdowns. He's unstoppable. You cannot stop him. So he received a scholarship to play at Florida International University, but he was expelled before the season for getting into a fight with a security guard. Now let me say this, as a youngster that had their fair run-ins with the police and with security guards, I get it. You know, security guards feel big in their britches, and anyone with a little bit of power, doesn't have a lot of power, always tries to accommodate that gap in power. So I feel you. I've also had altercations with security guards. You know, I'm not gonna say how they went, but it's never a good look. So I get it. Brown then began reaching out to wide receiver coach Butch Johnson at my alma mater, West Virginia University, since he had been highly recruited by him. After seeing that Jones left WVU for Central Michigan, Antonio Brown followed suit. And when he got there, one of the wide receiver coaches was like, hey, we'll give you a scholarship, but convert the wide receiver. He said, okay. And he played college football at Central Michigan University, where he earned All-American honors in 2008 and 2009 as a punt returner. So we're getting close to the transition. So it's not uncommon for football players, especially wide receivers, to have played quarterback in high school. It seems simply to be quarterback at high school, you need to be big and just be athletic. And if you're big and athletic, you will succeed as a quarterback in high school. But Antonio Brown had other intangibles for being a wide receiver. He's not that tall. He's 5'10", 5'11". But when he switched to wide receiver, it wasn't an easy transition, but when he got it, he went off. Like, look at these stats. Antonio Brown was a 6th round pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 2010 draft. And since then, Brown has amassed more receptions and more receiving yards than any other player since he entered the league. So where did it all go wrong? You got time? I hope you got time. The first 7 years of his career went off without a hitch. Like, I'm talking crazy stats. Leading the league in receiving yards multiple times, and receptions and touchdowns. Like, it was great for the Steelers, and it sucked for anyone that had to play them. But then we start to see some things unravel, and they're kind of minor things. He live streamed Tomlin's locker room speech, and that kind of broke team culture, because you never give the opponent a reason to be pumped up about what you said, and it also just breaks the privacy of everyone in that locker room. He drove 100 in a 35-mile-an-hour zone, which I mean, that's just too fast. That honestly is too fast. He trashed a condo and threw furniture out a window and almost hit someone, notably a child. Now, the thing landed in the pool, and the kid wasn't. I get the parents being upset. It's fair. You threw some furniture off a 18th story building. Yo, I lived on the 8th floor in college, and I remember looking out the window being like, yeah, that's high. The 18th floor, you throwing shit off? I threw a piece of paper out the 8th floor, and I was like, don't hit nobody. He killed a home aquarium full of piranhas when he refused to pay the man who installed the tank, which is just selfish. You have money. He also refused to play week 17 for the Steelers. This was very mind-boggling when it happened, because it was like, what, you just gonna not show up and think you can play? That's not how the world works. Antonio Brown didn't show up all week for practice because he had an argument with QB Big Ben. And after chucking the football at Big Ben's head, AB left practice. Then on Saturday, when AB's agent was like, yo, we're good to go, Mike Tomlinson was like, no. And this was when I was really like, come on, AB, you gotta play football. It's the one thing you're not really particularly smart. That's the one thing you're good at. What are you doing, buddy? After that, it just kept going. He dyed his mustache blonde like a James Bond villain. He refused to pay his chef because the chef left a fish head in the freezer, and he was like, that's a threat. And the chef was like, I was gonna make stock with the fish head. That's why I put it in the free. Yo, I work at a place that sells fish. You know what we keep in our freezer? Fish heads. He farted on a doctor. That is just funny. I'm sorry. The doctor was doing whatever on him.
Bodybuilders, this is pretty freaking low. I gotta stay away. Not bad. Damn. That shit is.
And he just let out the biggest rip. Athletes eat a lot of fiber, so I give him that. But also, the doctor says he didn't pay me, and also he farted in my face. Which is like, all right, did he not pay you any farted in your face? Or did he happen to fart and you just want to throw it? Because he was like, hey, he farted in my face. Are you suing for that? How much money do you owe someone if you fart in their face? Because some niggas owe me some money. But then he demanded a trade from the Steelers. Whoa. Can we have AB? No, not yet at least. Even though the Steelers wouldn't trade him to someone like the Patriots, it seems that the Steelers were done being the Steelers of our lives. Especially when AB threw a fit over Juju Smith-Schuster winning team MVP. He went at him on Twitter, and that's when he became the villain. There was a trade between the Bills and the Steelers coming up, and it seems AB nixed that by saying, like, I will never go to the Bills. Which people kind of forget about, because we kind of shit on the Bills, being like, I wouldn't go there either. And it was like, think about the Bills now with Antonio Brown. Yeah, they'd be scary, right? Any team with Antonio Brown would be scary. So he's traded to the Raiders, and he's given a ton of money. From here, it takes like a movie descent. Like, it literally is a cliff. That's me. He showed up to the Raiders training camp in a hot air balloon. But then he said, no, that's okay. I actually did that because I fucked my feet up in a cryo tank. All right. And then he held out because of a helmet. He says, I like my old helmet. I don't like this new safer helmet, which has like at least 5 additional crazy things packed into that. Somehow he walks away from that with a lucrative helmet deal by Zenith and a new helmet. Then he skips practice for basically no reason. He got fined by the Raiders. And then he tweeted those fines. Later he tried to fight his own GM, Mike Mayock, called him a cracker and said, fine me for that. Got fined for that. He then released a video where he used audio of coach John Gruden, who didn't know he was being recorded, I think that's illegal in California, demanded a release, was released. Had that video where he was like, I'm free, like that was weird. Tweeted out some crazy shit, liked a tweet about some crazy shit. Do we get him now? Oh, okay, bet. I said all that shit so fast because that's as fast as it happened, and it was kind of so much shit happening on top of each other. And then it came out that he actually had a social media team consult him on how to get fired on purpose. So then you can rationale all that crazy shit because you do shit and you say, all right, that was all an act. We're gonna go 18-0. I wasn't saying it at the time, and I'm convinced if Antonio Brown had not did the shit that I'm about to say, if he stayed with the Patriots, game over. But I move on. Signed with the Patriots. He then had sexual assault allegations released about him, but he was being sued in civil court. The Patriots were actually going to let this ride and see what played out. The NFL Players Association believed that he should not be on the commissioner's exempt list because he's being sued. Anyone can sue anyone, right? This isn't in the court of law, this is in the court of money. We want to see how this plays out and if the police take more action. Then he has sexual harassment allegations launched at him in a Sports Illustrated article. And it was like, someone said, that didn't work, try it again. So these happen and he still plays the game. We play the Dolphins and we win.
Get over the course of the season. Brady, end zone, caught by Brown, touchdown, New England.
Antonio Brown sends a threat to the woman that's not suing him in a group text that included his lawyer and had a picture of her kids in the text with her in the group chat, and said that wasn't a threat. That was a threat. Antonio Brown got released by the Patriots. Bill Belichick said, we don't need you. You go. So then after football, he settled down, disappeared, and really didn't say anything. No. He went off on a tweet storm and said a lot of crazy shit about a lot of people, and was supportive of people sending threats to writers of articles detailing other sexual assault allegations, just being a trash person. Said he was done with the NFL, went back to college via online classes, but then he wants to come back to the NFL. He also filed several grievances to try and get more money from the Raiders and Patriots. And then, when he was ordered to show up to a deposition regarding the trashing of the condo, he was accused of reprehensible behavior, such as arriving 30 minutes late, and before noon, he left. So you arrived late and then you left super early. He tweeted that the Patriots have to pay him, so they might as well let him play. So why is this happening to Antonio Brown? He has taken the deepest nosedive of any other athlete. Like, there's no athlete that has self-destructed like this. Well, I got 2 running theories, and they're both as provable as each other. There's just not a lot of evidence for both, because it's a person. You can't, all right. So one, it was like he was okay with the Steelers. He was a little selfish, but was it a fuck you thing? Like, did his ego get so big, right? Like, where he got paid, they made him the face of the franchise, and he said, all right, it's me and it's Ben, and it's the 3 of us, me, Ben, and Lev, right? And then Juju comes in, and he's like, whoa, what? And he couldn't handle it, right? And he blew up. And from there, he was like, you guys don't need me. And the Steelers were like, you know what? We don't. And that rocked him, and I think that has led to him never really wanting to be with the Raiders, to not wanting to be with the Patriots, not winning, but with the city that really rooted for him and loved him, and then he destroyed that tie. That's my one theory. We see this all the time, in fact, with like child stars and how it's just yearning for something, and there's always been this one thing filling it, and then when it's gone, you're kind of like, well, shit, right? But my second theory is that this hit this hit right here,
of course, flagrant.
This hit changed who Antonio Brown is today. Thing in the back of my head this whole time it's getting louder and louder is CTE. He has CTE. He's suffering from CTE, or at least I think he's showing the symptoms of CTE. What is CTE? I just said that shit a lot. CTE is chronic traumatic encephalopathy. This is the progressive degenerative disease of the brain found with a history of people with repeated brain trauma. This includes symptomatic concussions as well as asymptomatic subconcussions, hits to the head that do not cause any symptoms. Here's a fact. Playing football, you're gonna get hit, all right? You're going to get hit in your head. Here's another fact. By week 4, week 5, at least every person in the NFL has some injury. Football is a dangerous sport. The sport that I love is a very dangerous sport. You could say someone that played as many positions as Antonio Brown has taken a lot of hits to the head, a lot of them not being diagnosed. You know, I got concussions in high school. I was a high school athlete. I spent a lot of time in the athletic trainer's office and in the fucking little room they've had you in with a computer to take the concussion test. Don't use your phone or watch TV or don't fall asleep. All that shit. I went through all that shit. When you take a base test to know what test to hit after you, so it's like, all right, you didn't hit that score, you got a concussion. Like, if you've seen Blue Mountain State, there's the scene where Thad has a concussion, the C word, and his base score, he set it so low so that if he had a concussion, he could pass it. He set it at 2, and they was like, what do you score? He was like, 1. They was like, god damn it. Yeah, he definitely concussed. So, like I said, there are ways to work around it, though. And I can guarantee you, if he was as important to that high school, he took a lot of hits to the head. And if he didn't take as many hits to the head in the NFL, or he did, I'm not sure how many how many are documented. I guarantee you he took a ton in high school and college and playing as long as he did. The chronic is there. Chronic needs to be reoccurring. I believe it's there. Doctors would tell you that there's no conclusive evidence, but I think it's there. As a high school athlete, I think it's there. So why is that all important? I think it's because it's impossible to diagnose without a brain autopsy, but it's safe to say that Antonio Brown exhibits many of the symptoms. The symptoms of CTE include memory loss, confusion, impaired judgment, impulse control problems, aggression, depression, anxiety, suicidal, Parkinsonism, and even eventually progressive dementia. These symptoms begin years or even decades after the last brain trauma or end of the effective athletic involvement. That's why a lot of ex-NFL players feel CTE after they retire, is because their body and brain have finally stopped, and all that damage is like we hear, like when everyone shows up to the party at 9, that's all the CTE hitting your brain. I'm sorry. He seems confused all the time. He has impulse control issues up the ass, the hot air balloon, cryo tank without proper footwear, texting a person a very threatening message. He also seems recently very depressed, but also being out of the NFL isn't helping. Aggression, all you have to do is go to his Twitter page and just look, or the time he chucked furniture from a balcony. So the most important part I want to focus on is this. The symptoms often begin years or even decades after the last brain trauma or end of active involvement in CTE. So it's hard to tell when CTE affects an athlete because we don't know how many hits equals mush brain. What we do know is that it can be found in those as young as mid-20s. See Aaron Hernandez. So if my second theory is correct, and it is CTE, I think that this hit right here, this hit led to the downfall of Antonio Brown. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe my first theory is right, and he's just crazy, and it's a shame because it could have been a Hall of Famer. Maybe he still will be, but I don't think so. Canton not gonna call him. Let me know how you guys feel. You guys got some theories about Antonio Brown? What is going on with the man's? If you YouTubers are watching this, why'd y'all sign up for that? Why? I don't know. Thanks for watching, guys. My name's Cliff. My hand really washed me out right there. And this has been Unpack That Bowl. Peace.